People in Florida are supplying the cartel with guns. This one's got to be interesting. Let's get into it.
Now to a News4JAX I-Team investigation. Mexican drug cartels are manufacturing and smuggling highly addictive and dangerous drugs into our country.
Average Americans are supplying the cartels with firearms that were purchased at American gun stores.
And in one of these cases, we found that one of the guns that was purchased by one of these organizations ended up in a firefight between the CJNG cartel down in Mexico and the Mexican authorities.
According to U.S. Attorney Roger Handberg here in Florida, illegal gun trafficking from the Sunshine State to drug cartels in Mexico and crime organizations in the Caribbean, that's become a big business for some Floridians.
News4JAX I-Team reporter Eric Avignon explains.
This is only a tiny fraction of the guns recently seized by U.S. federal authorities before the weapons could be trafficked across the border into Mexico. But guess where these guns and many others came from before they could be smuggled across the border?
We were able to tell that some of the guns were purchased in the Middle District of Florida.
U.S. Middle District of Florida Attorney Roger Handberg says within the past 12 months, his office has been busy sending gun traffickers to prison.
We've prosecuted at least 20 different defendants who've been involved in trafficking more than 400 firearms. We've seen the firearms attempting to go to Mexico. We've seen them attempting to go to the Bahamas, to the Dominican Republic, and to Venezuela. And there's different ways that they try to get the guns to those places.
Handberg says the guns seized by federal law enforcement officers were intended to go to Mexican drug cartels and crime organizations throughout Central America and the Caribbean. But these aren't guns that were stolen out of cars or someone's home and then sold on the street. Federal authorities say many of the guns that are being sent to the Mexican drug cartels and even the organized crime syndicates in the Caribbean are actually purchased from gun stores here in the U.S. That's right, Americans who are legally allowed to purchase firearms are knowingly arming those organizations through a transaction called a straw purchase.
The straw purchase is not legal.
Zeke Farhat is the manager of Green Acres Shopping Goods, a federally licensed gun store in Jacksonville. What is a straw purchase?
A straw purchase is where somebody brings a buddy into the gun store with them and basically does everything. Picks the gun out, pays for the gun, but when it's time to do the background check, slides the paperwork over to his buddy. Basically using him as a straw man to pass the background check ultimately the firearm isn't for the person filling out the paperwork, it's for the buddy there that paid for it and picked it out.
This is the firearms transaction form he's referring to. This section of the form asks if you are the buyer of the firearm. It goes on to say you are not the actual buyer if you are acquiring the firearm on behalf of someone else. If the person filling out this form answers yes to that question, but still purchased the gun on behalf of someone else, then they have made a straw purchase, which is a felony, because at that point, it's illegal for the gun dealer to sell them the firearm.
So I can't have one person fill out paperwork and have another person pay. That's considered a straw purchase, and anytime that comes up in our store, we have to just cancel the sale. I can't sell the gun to either person.
Still, people find other ways of supplying criminal organizations with guns through straw purchases, ways that don't involve having a buddy with them in the store at the time of the purchase.
Exactly.
Farhat says people purchasing multiple different guns at one time can raise concerns. However,
if that same person's buying multiple pistols a lot, then that may raise some flags. But what we're really raising some flags is if somebody came in here and bought like 3 or 4 of the same exact make and model.
if caught and convicted, the penalty for making a straw purchase is incarceration for up to 10 years in federal prison and up to 15 years behind bars if convicted of gun trafficking. But despite the possibility of being convicted in a federal courtroom and hauled off to prison, there are still some people willing to take that chance because they know that trafficking firearms to drug cartels and other criminal organizations outside the U.S. is a profitable business.
We have individuals who this is what they do. I mean, we have one defendant who purchased over 80 firearms in the course of a year. He spent over $40,000 on firearms. He actually spent more money buying firearms than we could actually find that he actually made in legitimate employment.
Everything from pistols to 50 calibers.
Tom Hackney is a retired JSO Director of Homeland Security who is now a News4JAX crime and safety analyst. He says the fact that more than 400 guns have been trafficked out of Florida's Middle District to drug cartels and other criminal organizations outside the U.S. is shocking, but maybe just a fraction of a much bigger picture.
The stats that we talked about from just the Middle District of Florida here are pretty staggering. But when you start extrapolating that into South Florida and then out of Florida and then the whole country, that's a lot of guns going out, and that's a lot of money changing hands, and those are citizens really kind of violating the trust of the Second Amendment. That, you know, it's there to arm our citizens, not to arm drug cartels.
Before the guns are smuggled out of the country, steps are taken to erase or scratch out the serial number to prevent the weapons from being traced back to the store from which it was sold. When semi-automatic guns arrive at their intended destination, they are then converted to fully automatic weapons. Handberg says investigations into this type of gun trafficking revealed the demand for high-power weaponry.
One of the rings that we have dismantled was trying to acquire 50 caliber firearms, which are just really high-powered weapons that can pierce through body armor. They can help take down vehicles. They can help take down boats.
And it's not just the criminal organizations outside the U.S. that are getting their hands on guns that are purchased from U.S. gun stores. While talking with Handberg, I learned there was a criminal case here in Jacksonville where a local drug trafficking organization obtained a lot of guns that were straw purchased from federally licensed gun stores in our area. When investigators followed the money, it led them to the straw purchases of those firearms. And one more thing I want to point out to you. People heard Middle District. For those who may not understand, Middle District, that encompasses Jacksonville, Tampa, and Orlando, and the areas surrounding those three major cities here in Florida.
Yeah, when it comes to these guns and getting smuggled out of the country, how does that happen? How do they get to the cartels?
Every way you can imagine. We have found out that they are smuggling the guns in furniture and even home appliances that are either shipped or trucked across the border into some of these other countries. And they're even at some point taking these weapons apart and shipping them in multiple pieces to be reassembled once they get to their final destination.
And you said not just guns.
Not just guns. Two people out of Orlando were just recently indicted on charges of running a gun trafficking enterprise in which they were bringing not only hundreds of guns and machine guns into Florida and then also some of these countries outside of Florida. Also, get this, grenades that they were able to obtain through Chinese weapon manufacturers, private sellers, and even, again, federally licensed gun dealers in terms of the guns. But they believe the grenades most likely came from China.
Thank you, Eric.
I ain't gonna lie. That's crazy, man. I know them folks was getting pissed. You dig what I'm saying? Hey, that's a risky game to play, though. I ain't gonna lie. Them folks out here handing out 10s in the feds, boy. Ain't no way. Make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video. I'm gone.